Well, we will have some fun. And we're going to start with having some fun with my pastor, who has some questions for me, as I understand it. This is Amy Beveridge. She is the pastor of Bethel Lutheran Church in Templeton, California. Hi, Amy.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Warren. Actually, this is your interview. So, Warren Alderson, I don't really even know the full extent of your career. You're here with me because you're celebrating your 50th anniversary of your ordination.
I'm not sure I know the full extent of it either.
I know.
But we'll work on that.
I know. Now, I know you've been 25 years with the men's colony.
That's right.
Here in San Luis Obispo County. Yeah. And you just celebrated that, right, with your people and your supervisor and
we
whatnot.
Just did, yeah.
Yeah.
I even got a watch.
Yeah. But you have 25 years of mysterious career before that, which I'm also curious about, which we'll get into.
I do.
Yeah.
When we were in the seminary in those days, we used to have presidents that we had synod presidents. We didn't have bishops even. How about that?
Yeah.
We had synod presidents.
When did that happen,
bishops? Well, things change in the church, fortunately, for the good, I think, and for the better. So in our senior year, they parcel us out to different presidents or bishops now. And when this big meeting takes place, your future is in the hands of these few powerful religious people. Mm-hmm. And so 4 of us got together and we had a pact. We're going to pray for each other because tomorrow they're having the draft. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to South Pacific, which would have included Hawaii and California, and I think Nevada and Arizona at that point. And so we came back after the draft, and I said, wow, I didn't get South Pacific at all. I got South Dakota. I said, man, I prayed for you guys. And they said, oh, all 3 of them said, oh, we forgot. so off I went in 1964 after an interesting year of internship. Beverly and I went to South Dakota.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were there about 9 years. And then
in the same church?
Well, in church, in congregations, yeah. Zion Lutheran Church, Bridgewater, South Dakota, McCook County. Mm-hmm. And I was there a little bit over 4 years.
Was it one church, or did you have a multi-point?
Just one church there.
Just one church.
And then I wanted to go hunting. So I accepted a call to Western South Dakota, where there were 2 churches. And soon it became 3 churches.
And birds.
And lots of birds and
deer
and antelope and turkeys and wonderful things and some really great people.
Yeah.
But the economy was in shambles in those days. Mm-hmm. And so anyhow, after that 5 years in Western South Dakota, so that's 9 years in the parish ministry, I burned out and I decided to be a worker priest. And I went off to do that for about 15 years.
Okay.
And then I discovered the Department of Corrections.
Okay. So that's the overview.
That's the overview.
Yeah, I have some very specific things I want to ask you
good.
about that in there. But so if you don't mind, I actually really want to start very early. Mm-hmm. My favorite interviewer in the whole world always, when she sits people down, she always starts with this question, and I want to give this question to you. And that is, tell me about your childhood, right? But very specifically in your childhood, what was the tradition that you were raised with? What did your sensibilities about God, what did your parents give you? What did you discover on your own? What went on in those early years? Well before there was, I want to be a pastor, I'm going to seminary, I'm going to have a career at this. What were those first little things?
Well, I was born in Sisselton, Maryland, on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
Baptized in the Methodist Church there, the little church that my parents were married in. Mm-hmm. And shortly after that, we moved to a little place over in Delaware, a little dairy farm. And I started going to Sunday school and church, and my parents didn't go.
So how did that happen? So how did you start?
I don't quite know. They would drop me off, And I thought it was fun to do that in those days. It was kind of a kick. When we moved to, if I could bounce forward to when we moved to California, I was about 13. And my dad had said one day while we were picking tomatoes in a field in Delaware, he says, when we get to California, we're going to go to church. I started going to church, and then they started going to church, and we had a retired Presbyterian minister, retired Korean missionary Presbyterian minister kind of guy. And he wanted to confirm me, and so he baptized me too. And so then...
You've been baptized a lot. We've
one more time
one
for
more
sure.
time.
Because when we were married, and Beverly and I were married in 1954, First Baptist Church in Paso, and I had a youth group there. And the pastor came and made a pastoral call on us one night. I had already been to the Bible Institute of Los Angeles for 2 years. And he said, well, he's not unhappy with me, but his deacons would like me to be baptized if I'm going to have a boys' club in the church. So he baptized me. And then when Beverly and I skipped off into the military for 4 years, I ran into Lutheran pastors, Lutheran chaplains.
Yeah.
Hugo George Schmidt from Middletown, Ohio, when we were in England, and before that, Martin W. Baumgartner, Missouri Synod guy, when we were in Tucson, Arizona, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. So those are my 3 baptisms. I suppose I did bring some show and tell. The service at the Presbyterian Church last Sunday evening, this is a newspaper clipping from 1952, I believe, was a triumph for the young people who conducted it. Eunice Dieter was on the building committee at the Lutheran Church in Paso, welcomed the congregation. Marilyn Hammer and Janet Long sang a duet. Jerry Hovey presided at the organ, and Warren Alderson delivered the sermon, speaking from Romans 10 and 11. His text was, "Whomsoever believeth in him shall not be ashamed." We were all very proud of him, one member of the congregation said, and I'm sure that was my mother.
What did you... I hear that you had a formation, right? So
I had what?
A formation. So you had Christian formation and education, it sounds like, your entire childhood and teenage years.
Yeah.
You sounds like you had church attendance at some points with your parents.
Yeah.
You had service. You were serving the church. What did you know about God in those early years?
Oh, I knew a lot.
Yeah, tell me. That's what I want to know. Tell me.
Oh, I knew everything God did and everything God wanted, and everything God's ever going to need to know, I would tell him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did that come to a stop at some point?
Yeah. It came to a screeching halt, actually. Yeah.
Can you tell me when?
Oh. Well, I suppose at one of the points it came to a screeching halt on my internship, which was in Michigan. Probably that's pretty late, but I think it did. I think at that point I was ready to not know quite so much about God.
Yeah.
And part of my show and tell was a little booklet that a pastor's handbook.
Yeah.
That the Luther League gave to me from St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Reed City, Michigan. It has in there the funeral for a child. And while my pastor went on vacation, my pastor, mentor, friend, went on vacation, and, I'm in charge of the parish, right?
Yeah.
So this couple that knew something about the church called me, and their infant son was in the hospital, and he was in intensive care. And they wanted him to be baptized. They wanted me to baptize him. And all of a sudden I realized I didn't know anything about baptism. I'd been baptized 3 times. I'd been to our son's baptism, but I didn't know anything about baptism. And so I did the Seinfeld thing. Let's just wait until the pastor comes back and he'll take care of this.
Mm.
Well, the baby boy died.
Yeah.
So my pastor comes back and he says, Warren, do the funeral.
Wow.
So at that point, I think God and I had some talking to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have probably repented now 1,000, maybe with today 1,001 times
Yeah.
of that, you know.
Yeah.
That was quite a formation in my theology then.
And the big letting go.
I might not know as much about God, and I think I've been learning less and less. And one of my mantras is, I really wish I had been more intelligent, smarter in my life, but I'm so glad I wasn't dumber. I am so glad. I could have been so dumber.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that responds somewhere to your question. I didn't maybe go back to the infancy thing
Well,
as much
no.
as
What I hear is you had a pretty traditional upbringing, really.
I think so.
Even though you took a large part of that on for yourself.
Yeah.
It's interesting. My mom was a pastor, and she insisted her parents take her to church, and they dropped her at the door as well.
Okay.
I think there for some people that's just is how it happens, you know. But I do think it's interesting, this dynamic of, I don't think it's unusual to be so full of certainty and so assured of this communication that we have with God, and then at some point, for those of us who
lose that
who
certainty.
stay engaged, part of the engagement is actually letting go of a lot of that certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's, for me, and I think, I didn't say this, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I think it's Richard Rohr talks about this. So the two big experiences that draw us are great suffering and great love.
Oh, okay.
And those are the things that break our certainty and actually draw us into the mystery of God, even though it doesn't feel like that at the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just interesting hearing about, that you came right up against something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the travesties, the tragedies. In one of I buried another infant son in my first parish, and that was quite an experience. Fortunately, I did baptize that one.
Yeah.
And fortunate for me, at least, so I didn't
Right.
have to carry that guilt.
Yeah.
And then we had a little kindergarten girl killed by a school bus accident. But, you know, we have the tragedies in life, and those really stick in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are the things in the ministry, the things that the ministry's made of.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
I think maybe I was more ready for the parish after I left the parish and started doing worker priest work and that sort of thing. I was more at peace with myself in regard to that.
Did it take leaving the parish to reach that peace?
I think it did. Yeah, I think it did. I think I either had to leave the parish or get a divorce. I think.
Well, thank goodness.
I think those were the choices. You know.
Well, you how many kids? 4 kids?
4. Yeah. And we had 4 at that time. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Beverly talks about, I don't want to share, too much about her necessarily, but she several times is referred to this time period of when you left, there was no assurance that there would be an income, that there was, that you really did.
We were homeless a couple different times.
Yeah, just really stepping
that wasn't
out.
any fun,
Yeah, right.
But we did it, So
Right.
we shrug it off. I certainly wouldn't want to do it again. I wouldn't want to take some of the trips I took, with but we did it. That's all.
Yeah, right.
So we got stuck. There's all kinds of war stories, but we got stuck in Salt Lake City one time with a broken down car, and oh my! And then they fixed it, and we were at Traveler's Aid, and they took care of us. So we had a tour of the Mormon Tabernacle in those days because of that. So okay, I never would have done that. But then we started up Parley Canyon again, and the car broke down the second time. And the people then that had when I took it back the second time, they said, well, you should sue the guys that fixed it the first time. So then we started up the canyon again, and it broke down. I took it back to them, and they didn't say anything about suing those guys, because that would have been them. But anyhow, we got through that as well. Well, we're traveling through Nevada, and we come to Imlay, Nevada, which is kind of Indian country, and there's these statues. I didn't know they were statues. I thought they were people. We broke down on the side of the road. Our daughter Elaine wakes up, and she says, we're headed east. She says, oh, good. 5 o'clock in the morning. She says, oh, good. I always wanted to see a sunrise. I think that's a great quote.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
My daughter gets to see a sunrise because we're traveling and breaking down.
How old was she?
Oh, you know, I would have to think about that. She might have been 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I hadn't seen a sunrise. And now she lives on a ranch. What do you think about that?
Right. Open country.
Yeah.
So what did your family teach you about God?
Well, my dad could take a lot of stuff. He could take a lot of suffering, I think. I think my mother could too, and they probably took life in stride. I remember my mother had God and Raleigh salve for just about anything that went wrong. If sometimes my brothers and I laugh, if we had a broken leg, I think she'd put Raleigh's brown salve on it, but not really. Their faith was a quiet faith. I think even though they didn't go to church, God was part and parcel of it. I was able to be mad at God at a very early age, and I think probably because of them. If I was driving a tractor and about 8 or 9 years old, and the harrow stuck up, got a bunch of weeds stuck in it, I would think that was God's fault, and I'd be pretty mad at him for that. Shake my fist at him, tell him he shouldn't be doing that. He ought to let me harrow the field. You know. So I think that kind of stuff you got to get from your parents, right?
Sure. What about being a dad?
Being
a dad. You being a father.
My being a father.
What did you learn about God there?
Well, you know, I think in reflection maybe I've learned something about God. I think while I was doing it, I was too busy doing it to learn anything about God. I think I was just living it, you know.
Sure.
I was just there, and maybe I wasn't really there. You know, I mean, was I really present at all those events that happened to us? As like with this event, am I really present there? I'm not really sure I am. I would like to be there. I think it's going to be fun.
Well, but that's something I appreciate about you and the place where you're at. You know, just I see you mostly once a month when we get together with other pastors, and I think that you always in your comments and your questions and your wonderings bring an existential quality, a reminder about that uncertainty and the unknown, and I don't think you take much for granted, even your very presence, you know, and so I don't know where that comes from, but that's certainly a quality that you bring to things, and sometimes you make a little joke about it, but I sense that that's actually a very real tension that you live in.
I do live in that tension, but I'm comfortable in the tension.
Yeah, no,
Is that
you
fair
are.
to say that?
Yeah, no, you totally are. I would agree. I would agree.
After age 70, I could tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's an old adage that if you want to know the truth, ask anyone before 7 and after 70. Then you will know that they'll tell you the truth.
Well, I remember meeting you the first time because you said some things that were very truthful, and I struggled with becoming a pastor because I didn't want to be in a place where I couldn't tell the truth. And so one of the first things that happened was to meet a pastor who told the truth. And I remember you laughing, one of your sayings.
Oh, yeah?
We were in the back seat of a car driving to one of these things with, you know, various other pastors, and you said about, said something about scholarship, and your response was, "Oh well, your great saying." You want to say what it is?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, I think, did I say scholarship is ignorance with the library?
You sure did. That was one thing you said.
Okay.
And you were very quick, actually, to criticize, and this is a result of your being, I think, a prison chaplain. You were very quick to criticize how comfortable people are in their little church life.
Oh, I was?
You
Wow.
were, but no,
Okay.
it wasn't in a mean way.
I don't feel mean about
No,
that.
you weren't mean about it at
Okay.
all, but you were very astute and observant about there's a whole lot that we take for granted in the
Yeah.
average Sunday church life,
Oh.
and we're not actually always aware of how much we need God.
Yeah.
And that need for God has certainly been shaped by your years in prisons.
Yeah. Well, the prisoners taught something. Actually, this is actually said. You don't realize Jesus is all you need until Jesus is all you've got.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's pretty awesome when you run into stuff like that. And then I remember a prisoner named Wayne. He said, "Man, Rev, this God business is cool."
Yeah, right. and in the parish, sometimes we're so comfortable in our routines that we're not in that place of wonder and discovery, and we're not grappling really with the wretchedness either of what we're capable of too. So
well, as I reflect on the parish, we had such luxuries that we majored in minors then we worry about some little things. I mean,
I remember you talking about that.
Okay.
And I was like, that was part of my own struggles. That was part of my own struggles. And so to find other voices, because I didn't want to be a pastor who was going to get all caught up in what the carpet color in the sanctuary was going to be. Like, that was going to drive me absolutely nuts.
Okay.
And so I met you when I was on internship.
That's right.
And there you were dispensing your truth-telling wisdom, post-70 wisdom. And I was like, well, if this is a Lutheran church, I'm going to be all right. I remember that very distinctly.
Oh, that's affirming. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's an honor to hear that.
Yeah, it was
That's
good.
amazing.
It was good.
Have any idea that was an impact on that.
No, it was helpful. It really was.
Yeah.
So, well, can we talk about prison a little bit?
We can.
I just want to, how did you discover, did you have any inkling that was the direction that you were going? Because you're not, and not only that, you're at a high security prison. We are. We have some lifers. We are actually low level and then medium level with some level 4 prisoners there. In the seminary, I had an assignment to visit we call it the insane asylum in those days, in Columbus, Ohio. And I was impressed. That was pastoral care class, and I went out and visited that, and it made an impression on me. I just thought I was going to incorporate that stuff into my parish ministry, and I did. And then at the first call at Zion Lutheran in eastern South Dakota, I did have a member whose dad was in the insane asylum at the mental hospital then, I think, by that time, in Yankton, South Dakota. And then when we moved to, and then I had an association with a Lutheran that was at Plankington Youth Authority in South Dakota. And then I tied in, when we went to western South Dakota, I tied in with some people at the Veterans Hospital in Sturgis. Sturgis is famous for its motorcycle days in August, but it also has a really neat VA, which has come under, the VA has come under fire just now while I heard about
experiencing this.
Right.
But those things all kind of played in. I realized that it seems to me nothing's ever wasted.
Yeah.
And so I went out of the parish. I went into worker priest method mode. I served an interim at Grace Lutheran in King City, California.
Beverly said you were selling insurance.
And when I burned out, I still get some money from my insurance days, and I was good at it, but it just wasn't me.
Yeah, right.
And I kept talking to marginalized people, marginalized financially.
Yeah.
Those aren't the kind of people that buy it. So I kept doing ministry.
You kept doing ministry while you're trying to selling assurance while you were selling insurance.
Yeah, that was funny. But,
oh, wow.
yeah, I think I was probably the second worst salesman that New York Life ever had. Anyhow.
But you were being formed.
While I was doing that,
you're getting ready.
Then Warren Nielsen was our pastor at, after Ron Kranzik, Warren Nielsen
at Bethel
was our pastor. And some people out at Lake Nacimiento wanted him to come out and do some kind of a Lutheran service out there. And he said, well, he had all he could handle, but maybe Warren Alderson would do that. And I went out there on Pentecost Sunday, I think 1980. And I was there for 8 years with those people. And that was really a neat ministry. But I was only there 2 or 3 years when I called the chaplain at the Youth Authority in Paso. And they've since closed, by the way.
Yeah.
His name was Bob Curry. And I said, hey, Bob, how can I help you with your ministry out there? He said, well, that's the right question.
Yeah.
Let's have lunch and talk about it. I started volunteering there.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, after I'd been volunteering there a while, he said, you should meet my friend down at the prison in San Luis Obispo. I think you'd like him. His name is Stanley McGuire. And I went down, met him, and I started volunteering with him as well. And then Bob Curry said, you know, I think I have a friend who's teaching CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education, at a prison up in Solano. And I think you ought to take that course. Well, I'm 52 years old. I've done a lot of different things. Why not go ahead and do that? I asked Beverly, I think we got enough money to do that? She said, well, we probably have more money than you think we've got. So I went up there for a summer, 440 hours of CPE.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was volunteering at Tascadero State Hospital. So I was volunteering and I was doing the ministry, and I was still selling a little bit of insurance. Not so you'd notice, but there was some in there. And so then the
contemporary indulgence, that's what I think about insurance.
It might
I buy them. I'm right.
yeah.
We all do.
Well, I sold some good policies. Many of them are still in force, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And some of them have paid off for people, so that also is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest one I sold, as a matter of fact, has paid off for the people. So
good.
I did feel pretty good about that.
Good.
So, and then that's that. After CPE, I went to Fresno Community Hospital under a Lutheran, Fred Secret, and I took CPE over there in Fresno Community Hospital. And then the following summer, went back up to California Medical Facility and took another quarter of CPE. So they gave me actually my needed 3/4 of clinical pastoral education. And the Department of Corrections was in an expansion mode. I think we had 14 prisons at that time, and now we have 33 prisons. So when I started interviewing, and I thought, well, I'd interview around. And I interviewed 16 different places. And I always came in second or third, never came in first. But my first interview was at CMC.
Yeah.
And then they changed their mind and said, oh, we thought we had a lot of money, but we don't have any money.
Yeah.
So we're not going to hire you.
Yeah.
So then I went to Blythe and Jamestown and Corcoran and Whittier and Pelican Bay and Soledad, and
wow.
had some great interview experiences. It was tremendous. And then one day, the guy from Norco called me, and that was the drug treatment center for our corrections, and said, his name was Bob Grove. He said, Warren, I'd like to offer you the position of chaplain down here today. I said, great, Bob. I've been interviewing for about 2 years. But he said, I'm not going to do it because it wouldn't be fair to ask you to move. Gail Lewis is going to offer you CMC this afternoon. That was a real gentleman, I thought.
Yeah.
That was a real gentleman. So I've been at CMC since that time.
So
December the 5th, 1988.
1988. So the 25 years about, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm now in my 26th year there. Pretty exciting ministry, pretty interesting. A lot like the parish in many, many ways.
Yeah.
We have financial concerns. We have emotional concerns. We have doctrinal concerns.
Mm-hmm.
We have problem of majoring in minors, a lot of paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And I was upset with two things in the parish. All the paperwork that I had to do
Mm-hmm.
and meeting all those new people all the time.
And here you are with all the
And now
paperwork
I
and
am,
meeting all those people all the
with God's
time.
sense of humor, I have a lot of paperwork, and I'm meeting a ton of new people every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Sure. Sure.
So that's my story.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you want to say about what do you think the prisons have taught, or ministry in the prisons have? What do you know now that you didn't?
Mother Teresa said that there is no person who is worth less than another person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's prison ministry.
Mm-hmm.
When you can realize that, yeah, there are people that can make a lot more money. They're worth more money, but value before God, each of us has a worth, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always the same.
So is that something that you just keep discovering along the way, or is it it's also something you give? I'm sure
Yeah.
that's a gift that passes through you
Yeah.
to other human beings.
Each individual, I think I was more in tune with it with the prisoners.
Yeah.
I think I was more ready to receive this, that they each have a gift to give.
Mm.
They each have something to say. And they know things I don't know,
Right.
each and every one of them.
Right.
And I know things they don't know.
Yeah.
And we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
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 So I'm pretty thrilled with that part of my job, and that's why it's still exciting for me.
Well, I know that every so often there's these rumors that you're going to retire, but then you rebuff them.
I
And
have
so still
been
work to
told that
do.
I have retired at least 5 times, and I could enumerate them for you. But now then, with this event at Bethel,
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, now this is your final retirement." Well, I haven't done the paperwork yet.
I know. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, for everything. And I am looking forward to this event on June the 8th on Pentecost Sunday, celebration of the Holy Spirit, where we get to thank you and feel your work come alive for a few minutes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there is some admiration here for your ministry and for your person.
Thanks.
And I want
This
to
doesn't
thank you
have
for
to go
that.
on there, but thank you.
Okay.